When I first announced the arms, 4 days, and as you know, we went to a first come first served call basis, which does not work. But we had to try to buy. We could. Once we got the airport venue set up, the airport thing, and then it worked very well. And we did that in conjunction with a lot of people in the community that volunteered. People, from the hospital system have great admiration for, and it worked. I think as we talked about that, we live in a global economy, a global community. And so that thing came fast, a lot of uncertainty with this. There's a lesson to be learned in everything. So I think we took a step back. What happened? How do we prepare about a surprise, going forward? I think the hardest part for me, I think for a lot of us, was how do you manage fact and fear, especially when the fact is all over the board, and certainly everybody has a different fear, of what's going on. What do I do? How do I do things? I guess I try to walk or ride my bike every morning in my own neighborhood. I would get stopped at 6:30 in the morning by neighbors. Hey, you're doing a good job. Others would tell you have blood on your hands. Nobody gave me any special dispensation and all this and stuff like that. But you always try to do the courtesy also. As things changed, I think we started to get to a piece of stability a little bit. I think that helped it a little bit. I think the other thing was for us, and that a lot of this came down from governors, is we had to prioritize things. So when we got the first round of funding for the CARES Act, first thing was let's make sure people have a roof over their head. Second place is do they have food on the table? And third, if it's a dual income, do they have child care? Our feeling was if we could stabilize the family, okay, that's number one. When we got the second round, then we started looking at businesses. What money can go towards the businesses? And the fact of the matter is, no matter how much money you have coming through the system, it's never fast enough, and it's never enough. And that causes some other problems, as you all well know. But I think the thing that we set up was to get back to the basics. And I think one of the things we did right, was the fact that you have to have people dealing with people. How many people try to call, get into this phone system and punch this and punch that? So we set it up that we have people just taking the calls, listen to somebody, have them ask questions, and then to send it to the processing piece, and I think that worked pretty well for us. The hardest part again was balance. People would say you need to shut everything down, and other people say, look, my whole business, my ability to provide for my family, you can't shut me down. And so you try to do the best you can with that. And I think we're all collectively in a better place as a result of everybody else taking responsibility. So that side, where are we today, and how do we start looking at 5 years out, 10 years out, 15 years out, because some big issues there. Remember the first time I went out to C-43 with Phil Flood, and I said, when did you start this? And he said 1995. And you start realizing how long it takes to do things, so it's good education. I think the other thing is we have to understand we're working in a very different environment today. Our economy is much more diverse. Our population is much more diverse than just according to that. It was interesting to me when I first came down here. The elves kept talking about. I came down here. We kept talking about someday we're going to be at 1 million. Well, I used to run the state of Florida for CBRE's commercial real estate company. And when I looked at it regionally, if you took Lee, Collier, and Charlotte County, we were already at 1.4 million. So my point was, we're already at 1.4 million. We need to start planning for 2 million people. And Cecil Pendergrass came back the other day and said, "Cecil, that was a trip." He goes, he said, he pulled over on 75. There's a big sign, "Welcome to Florida." He said, people are jumping out of their cars and taking pictures in front of the sign because they're still coming. So that creates how do we deal with that growth piece. So I want to give you just a visual of, maybe keep in mind as we go through some of these other comments. If you ever see a picture from the space shuttle, you see the lights coming down the East Coast, lights coming down the West Coast. And then you got the center of the state. Up north, you got Orlando and everything. And the reason I mention that is if you took, we've got 5 or 6 roads that go east to west. We're becoming a bi-coastal community. And the reason I want you to think about that is, so if you take Lake O South, that's that patch of dirt that we have to operate with going forward. So you can't go farther west because the guys on the East Coast can't go farther east. So now those are our limits. So what do we have to do with that? We're going to have to provide for housing in there, we're going to provide for commercial support for that. But here's the thing I think we sometimes don't think about, and certainly I'm learning all this because I was not in this arena couple years ago. Our waste energy plant is phenomenal. When I was a kid in New Jersey, we used to go to the dump, you know. So when I first went out to the waste energy plant, I was like, am I in the right place? There's no smoke, no smell. They've done a fabulous job with it. They burn the garbage, it turns into steam, the steam drives the turbines, and you sell energy. It's pretty cool. But we're at capacity for that, pretty close to it. We're gonna have to add another burner. But now we're starting the process of where's the next waste energy plant go, you know? And that's gonna take, I'll be long gone for that. In the file there, but we have to start now. But that's another land usage, both from the plant itself and from the recycles. And I talked to my counterparts on the East Coast, they're coming west. So now we have all this convergence. So I said to somebody, I guess we'll all meet, you know, in South Central Florida, you know, at some point in time. So there's a lot of different pieces going on. Obviously, water is always at the top of the list for all of us. Kevin Rowan, who I ran with last year. Kevin's become a great friend. He was the mayor of Sanibel for 11 years. He's deeply ingrained in the water issue. It's a concern. A lot of us came here because of water. I remember when I went to Pensacola to go to flight training and stuff like this, I'd look at this beautiful Gulf of Mexico and go, I'm gonna live here someday. So it brought us here. I grew up surfing and everything else, and it's a lifestyle that we all enjoy. So I think there's pretty good alignment between the federal government, the state, and what we're doing here locally. I think when everybody's pulled in the same direction, we can probably get to a positive end result. The unfortunate part is, you know, the federal government has been a little bit delinquent on the funds that are coming down this way. So we picked up as a state and sometimes in the county some of those deficiencies. But we're all pulling in the same direction. I think the other issue is septic to sewer. Bob Himshoot was one of the first people that called me when I got elected. He said, how much do you know about septic tanks? I said, well, we had one in the back of our house when I was growing up. That's about the extent of it. So we did the whole study. Estero's done, and we've shared all of our information from the county with the it was pretty remarkable. We have some septic tanks that are wood. We have some that, you know, are really old. So then it was a matter of prioritizing where they were and what's the potential for impairments of waterways. And so then you start getting into priorities and so on and so forth. I think Mark asked the question, he sent me a few notes, is that can we require people to hook up to a sewer system? Well, if there's new communities being built and there is this infrastructure to hook up, yes, absolutely. But in some cases there's not, and especially in some of the older communities or redevelopment, there's not. So we've looked into, there's a number of smaller packages, you know, that are pretty efficient and a better technology, and that may be an intercept. The other piece is how do you pay for it? It's very expensive. If you have a fairly modest home and it's going to cost you, the numbers are all over the board, let's say on an average mark, maybe $20,000–$25,000, it's pretty expensive. So how do we help mitigate or do that change? So the good news is that I think we've done a pretty good job with the TMDL requirements that have been imposed on us and stuff. Oh, are you just waving at me? That's good. That's all right. I was flattered. Infrastructure. Certainly one of the things, I drive on the same roads that you do. I don't have a county commissioner road to go on, so it's a challenge. And but I always say roads take time, and they take money, and they take patience. We're having a ribbon cutting, I think, next week or the week after for Estero Boulevard down at Fort Myers Beach. And you know, my son does similar work out in Colorado, and I said, Chris, I've never seen anything like this. Because it was so tight down there. You got golf, and you have homes on this side, you got homes on this side, very narrow pathway, and the road was in terrible shape. So it's going to be complete, I think, this week, all the way from downtown, all the way to the south end of the island. So now I get calls. People are driving too fast on that new road. That I can't control, you know. But we work well with the town of Fort Myers Beach, great people. We were able to we had to put the drains actually in the middle of the road because there's no room on the sides of the road to have a typical drainage thing, but it actually works pretty well. Added sidewalk, added a bike path. The problem is it's constrained. There's no way, there's only so much lane they can do that with. But so now we're going to start in, fairly soon on the new Big Carlos Bridge. That will be a fixed span bridge that will go, into the south side of the island. There was a lot of controversy about that. Should it be a a mobile bridge, and this was done before I got there as far as the concept. Now it'll be fixed span. I used to live on a barrier island, so you gotta be very careful about having a barrier island and 2 bridges, and both of them are subject to power, and stuff like this. So it'll be fixed span, so that'll allow for the rescue and so on people to have a clear path. The other thing, it'll allow folks to go under, larger boats with masts and everything. But it'll have a bike path, so a lot of people, great bikers there, will ride over if they need to be able to ride up. And you really couldn't ride across the old bridge because people are fishing. You got all their stuff there, and people are wandering around. So I think overall it'll be, no matter what you do, the various opinions, try to respect them all, but I think it'll be good for people to get out and exercise. And I don't know if I could be able to climb that. My son lives in Colorado. I try to ride with him, I get dropped in the first mile. Some of the things that some of the roads that we're going, Alico Road is made great progress, over there. We got the Alico bypass. I don't know if you know that. That'll be from Alico Road, and it'll go out east and it'll tie it up north and up into 80. And what the reason for that is to get some of the traffic off of 75. So the people coming out of Lehigh can come down the connector piece, get down to Alico, and you'll all see the development that's going on down there. So that we're very encouraged. We're already buying the land. Some of the roads that we're putting in, Corkscrew. I was out there the day before yesterday. Actually, it took me 8 minutes to get from, this is not during traffic time, it took me 8 minutes to get from 75 out to the Eckerendeza property. So we're making progress there. We're also we're going from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, but we're buying additional land. So when it has to expand, again, we've already got the land, we can go into the design elements, so on and so forth, we need to expedite. Has anybody been out to the place? It's called The Place. The Eckerendeza family built the place, and Jim and I have talked about this. When I was running, people say I'm not against growth. I want control. I want management. Is it managed growth? Is that the concept? Yeah. So, I'm getting pretty old, but I can Google. Manage. What does that mean? And it talked about green space. It talked about flowways. It talked about animal movement. It talked about density. So I thought, okay, now I've got a basic understanding of that. Because when I got into this, like I said, with everything that's new, because our garbage being in the driveway disappears, that's about as much as I knew. But so I went out there, and Joe Cameron and his family was doing a presentation, and I think, first of all, 50% of that land goes into conservation in perpetuity. 50%, that's the requirement. Second thing is they developed the flowways, they developed the animal movement tracking, and so on and so forth, and then obviously put a little bit more density into where the residential are. It's a spectacular, beautiful. It's a template. Is it perfect? No. But I took Katie Arrington out there with Estero, and Katie and I have been friends from Ohio days. I said, Katie, you ever been out there? She says, no. I said, let's go out. So she was out. She was stunned, and I was out there with Fish and Wildlife. I was out there with the Audubon Society, and they were pretty impressed with what they saw. So we're sitting there, and she goes, well, she says, the only problem I have is when you go in and buy these large parcels of land, you cut all the trees down. He said, let's go across the street to the Banana Village. We'll see our next project. So we go across the street, we drive in, it's all wide open. She goes, see, and I love Katie. I'm trying, she goes, see, this is what I mean. He said, Katie, this was a farm. We didn't take any trees out of here. So, part of my process is to learn myself and then share it with people who I think are respected in the community and have them see it. They can make their own decisions about that. So I think it's a template, and that all leads to in some respects housing. And if I have a concern for us as a community, and it's not just here, it's everywhere. I saw a great piece on the morning the other day. 2 young girls, well educated, living in Manhattan, working in Manhattan. And they're saying, hey, our rent just went up almost $1,000. And even with good jobs in the city, we just can't afford that. We have a young lady at the county. She has a good job, a staff person, so she's not making an inordinate amount of money. She has benefits. Her rent went up $250 a month. She says, I got a room. So you think to yourself, here's somebody who has a good job, has benefits, and the market's walking away from her. And how do you take care of that? So it's a challenge. Danville Ledbetter used to work for London Bay Horns,
He's building a process that we try to help him with, conceptualize. So we tried to help him with that. And so I called him, I've been out there a few times, I went out and saw him the other day. I said, Daniel, I said, how we doing? He said, my cost went up 30%. 30% year over year. And he's trying to build this to be in a space, for affordable housing. And the only good thing is, rents have gone up almost the same amount. But that based on market deal, no room in there for that, that piece. And that's extremely important to help professionals, our firefighters, our teachers, and everything. And if we can't solve that problem, we're not going to be able to attract people. We're going to lose some of these businesses. And so from me, this with Kevin is number one, because of my background, I spent a lot of time on the housing component, on the homeless, and these are all constituents, they're all neighbors. So how do we fix that? And it's terribly frustrating because you can't control the price of labor, you can't control the price of materials. You could with land, but now land is in such demand that the numbers just don't work. So somebody says, so what can you do as the county? So I think we can do a couple things. One is, I think we're gonna have to look at density differently. And I was talking to Steve Sarkozy one day, and I said, Steve, you guys are running out of land too. He goes, density, that's all he said, you're not saying anymore. The second thing is, can we look at zoning differently? And this is just concept, this is, there's no policy other than me talking to you. Think about this, if you're Amazon, and you built this new facility on Oligo Road, but you're driving down from Lehigh, what happens if we allow, within that zoning, an apartment project right next door? Okay, so what does that do? So if I'm Amazon or somebody else hiring, I go, you know what, we have a residential piece right next door, and either through salary or some kind of abatement, it's affordable. It helps those people. Now I can just get up in the morning and walk across the street and go to work. How's that? And I don't have to travel on 75 every morning. That becomes with the price of transportation, kind of crazy. So I think there's some things to think about. I think the third thing is, and I've had a couple conversations with different people, if you're telling me that your most important resource is your people, okay, then I think you're starting to be making provisions in your own budget to see how you're gonna address that, whether it's a better salary, whether it's augmenting for rent or whatever. I don't have the answer to that. But so there are active discussions to see how we can make it better, and I think most people understand it because it affects everybody else. We have 19,000 people in Lee County that are spending more than 50% of whatever income they're making simply on housing. It doesn't work, numbers don't work. So if I have a concern, we live in paradise, we always talk about that, but we have to make it affordable. And we have to make it affordable for the people that help us to run whatever. So it's a big issue. Conservation 2020 is one of my favorite projects. We bought over 30,000 acres. I lived up in Tampa Palms when I lived up there, and between two busy roads, I-75 and Bruceby Downs. But the way that was positioned, you can go back there, it's a 7 or 8 mile loop. You can go back and you couldn't hear a sound. It was my favorite place to ride. Until my son came down, who's a big bike rider, lives in Colorado, and I get dropped in the first mile. That didn't work out very well. But I think we can do that. We have the Kuiper Preserve, which we're doing the initial studies right now. We're doing the hydraulic studies now. Where the berms have to abate from the water side. Once that's done, then we'll step into what potentially the park could be, which I think is going to be very important to all of us. And once we get at least an initial plan, then we'll reach out to everybody, and have them, okay, what do you want, what do you need? And by hiring an outside firm, we'll be able to be exposed to some things maybe we hadn't thought about. So that's going to be great. I talked about jobs a little bit. One thing that's, I think we all realize is that not everybody needs to go to college or wants to go to college. One of the things last year, which was a lot of fun, the school system, along with some of our business people, we had signing day. We did it over my shower door. And so these kids were offered jobs like the Galloway family. And so the parents were there, the kids would come up. This is Joe, he's gonna work at Galloway 4, he would sign. The parents were there, you got a job, that's great, something like that. But it gave some direction, but it gave some recognition that whatever your talent is want to do, you can make, he said, you can make $75,000, $80,000, in plumbing, within a year and a half or so. Really? Didn't know that. So we're trying to expose them to that, encourage that through the trades, and I think the schools are doing a good job of, if you go to Bonita High School, for instance, you know, they've got an HVAC part there, they have aviation part in there, so we're trying to expand, have people do that. We have 15,000 jobs, to summarize that, 15,000 jobs in Lee County open, and that's not good. So if you're somebody considering the marketplace, okay, there's a lot of things I like, but where's my employees gonna come from? And that's a challenge. Public safety, I can't say enough, you know, for our sheriff's team. Over 50% of our general funds go to public safety, because what do people want when they come down here? Where do I live? Because the housing people, stuff like that. Where do my kids go to school? How safe is the community? You know, and you know, as the sheriff said in one of his presentations last week, you don't screw around here. You'll find yourself in the Marcino Hotel. You know, and he's not kidding. I tell people, you know, you kick a dog here, you're in big trouble. So I worry about these guys every day when they go out, you know, and they're a lifeline for us. The economy, I'm on the Port Authority, the airport, we're expanding. We're adding 14 gates. We have exceeded every metric that we had of people coming back to Southwest Florida. In fact, at Thanksgiving, the parking lot was full, long-term parking was full, we had to put people off site. So that's just one aspect. The new tower is up, they put the guts in it now. Probably have to add a second runway sooner rather than later. But it's, the whole expansion is going to be pretty amazing. Page Field is, for private aviation, is taking playing a larger part. I think the other thing too is that, you know, we talk about the economy. When I ran the state of Florida, the logistical supply chain was different. Everybody wanted to be in Southwest Florida. Well, the industrial space over there was maybe 24, 28, you know, where you can rack. It's up to 45 feet. We're putting windows in industrial space just to let natural light in. But, so it's got to come this way. So I think our ability to move things, whether it's by rail or some of the smaller airports, is going to be a big part of where we go in the future. Interestingly enough, you know, I've been to Miami Airport numerous times, the flowers, you know, and fruits and stuff, but it's actually, a lot of it is drugs, legal drugs, that need to be refrigerated. So that's playing a bigger part of what's going on. I'll close on just a couple of things. One is veteran services. I'm the only veteran on the county commission, and I think there's always room for improvement with taking care of our vets. The hospital that we have here is really a clinic. We call it a hospital. The nearest hospital is actually up in Tampa. So we're trying to do the best we can to connect our veterans into the system, whether it's the veteran themselves or a spouse, so they can get the help they need without having to try to do this themselves. Mental health is a challenge, especially with the pressures that have been put on our community, you know, over the last few years. And so we have these other resources coming through that was much more restrictive, but they're loosening up a little bit, and we're trying to see where those funds can go to help out. One of the great partners we had was the Salvation Army, and they did a lot of work for us to the point that it kind of got overpowered. We're taking some of that burden off there. We've hired another group that will be operating where the salvage care is. It's called the Center for Progress and Excellence. And we had some issues downtown. I sit sometimes, I'll go over to Health and Human Services, and I'll just sit and listen to calls coming in. A girl called last week, she goes, we work in Miami, I got 3 kids, where are you staying? I'm in a car down near the river. You think about young people in a car, you know, and so then you have rapid rehousing, so we had this gap, so we rented a couple of hotels, which was not easy to do, so people can have a roof over their head. But it's not just giving them the key, you know, you have to help them with services. So background services are incredibly important, so probably going too long. But, so anyhow, I'll take a few questions now, or get on with your program, and then I'll stay around.
I'll tell you what, because of time, we're really running pretty late here. The commissioner has graciously said he'll be here.
I'll stay.
He'll stay around, so if you have any questions of him, just catch him. He'll be sitting or standing in the back. We appreciate this, just for the sake of time. Thanks very much.
Let me just tell you about myself a little bit. I came here working in 2004. I worked in the County County Jail for 1.5 years, and then I went to Road Patrol for 8.5 years. And then from there, I actually went to the SET team, which is a special enforcement team, which is if you guys think there's drug houses or something in your community, I was the guy out there with the binoculars or something, watching it, getting making a lot of arrests and doing some cool stuff with vice narcotics. So the sheriff came here to Lee County. He's also from Tyre. a little nervous actually, it's kind of strange, because you guys are so quiet. But, so he came here and he's like, hey Frank, I need you to come to my communities. We're starting up this crew unit. So what is the crew unit? Community response unit. So what we do is, the sheriff realizes that most of Lee County is all gonna be communities now, right sir? This is gonna be like mostly all, it's very hard to get land, like you were saying, so they're building big communities. So with the communities comes different obstacles and community rules, HOAs, and you guys are all familiar with all this. So what can we do to specialize with them and get them special attention and make it, so if everyone's coming from everywhere, we all get on board. How many people here are from up north? Anyone? Besides myself, right? New Yorker? I'm trying to lose the accent, it's not working. But, so with that, I came here, I really like the laws here. I like the way it's safe. Our Sheriff Carmine Marcino pushes, law and order, right? If you guys seen his Facebooks, lives, and everything else, law and order, and everyone's gonna be safe and secure here. And he really wants to make sure, so we do these presentations with Crew Unit, and Heather will come out and preach and give you, actually, we do house security, scene safety and stuff like that, where she'll actually come out and say, hey, your bushes are blocking this, you're doing this, your house is not safe, you wanna put some lights up, it's very dark. I happen to be a stickler for the cameras. I'm a madman with cameras. I'm pushing cameras in your community constantly. Does anyone here know what the real-time crime center is down at headquarters, down at 6 Mile Cypress? So with, he knows, he's been there. It's very cool, right? It literally is the modern day Batcave. See on these movies, the FBI's always got screens and clear boards and they're pointing to this. Well, down there, they've really assembled something, and it really didn't cost the taxpayers anything. It's all from forfeited, seized things from drug dealers and things like that. So this is what they've made down there, and I just describe it as, hey, it's the Batcave. We got people working in there, we got screens, and it's easier to talk about. What we are doing right now is, there's 2 camera companies that have made their software comparative with the Sheriff's Office Real-Time Crime Center. So I probably covered all my communities in the South District. Now I'm expanding my role with the Sheriff's Office as a lieutenant. But all down south, I sent them all the, Estero and Benita, I've sent them all the information on how to get in contact with these companies to see if they're right for you. We don't get any kickback, that's your private contract with them, but by getting one of those cameras, you can actually, your exits and entrances of your communities can be interactive with the Sheriff's Office. If you just, you have to sign to say, hey, you guys can tap into our cameras if you want to. We don't have the capability to track it 24/7. We're not an alarm company watching your cameras all the time, but if we had to, we could, if we had to. So that's one of the benefits. If something occurs at 3 a.m. in the morning, something god awful happens, we could actually, our real-time crime center doesn't have to wake up any property managers or HOA presidents or vice presidents. We could just go right into the cameras. Who came in there 3 days ago? What white car? We're looking for a white Toyota Highlander. Okay, so let's pull up all of them. Look at the tags. So it's one of those things that really works out well for us. It helps our detectives solve crimes. We're doing a lot of things with technology. Sheriff Carmine Marcino is huge on technology. If you've watched his stuff, you know that all he's talking about is his drones and the cameras. Now, people used to ask me, you guys look at those, I was in Collier, they used to say, you guys use those cameras on the telephone poles, right? And I'm like, no, we don't use those, but now we actually do. It's not always a great picture, but a lot of times if something happens, that's the beauty of it. Then you can follow that person and figure it out, get somebody up in the air. We have our units up in the air, and we can take care of something and get it solved. I preach cameras for home security. If you don't want to get a camera, I understand it. Some people are paranoid. They just say, I just don't know how to use it. But right now, the prices of cameras have come so far down, and the quality has gone so far up. So 1080p camera is actually kind of a cheap camera now. The 4K ones are a little bit more expensive. But anybody in here or anyone that has access to is watching this at home or whatever, I encourage you, if you can, if it's within your rules, to get some cameras on the sides of your home, so you can also see. You can set it to motion at night. I have one in New York. I own half a house in New York with my brother, and he sends me these little clips of these big deer that come by the camera, and they set it off at night. And maybe that's the only thing that you'll see on those cameras ever, and that's a good thing. But especially if, for your seasonal people, I say throw a couple of cameras on there that work off of Wi-Fi. You can get them so cheap. And now you're watching, you call the sheriff's office, you say, hey, right now there's a guy with a light blue collared shirt on, he's got beige pants on and brown shoes. He's an attractive man, you know, and he's outside my house and he's trying to get in. And I need you guys there now, because I don't give him permission to be there. And that's something, we love community input like that. We don't like, Heather she gave me a little bullet point thing to talk about stuff like this. But I know a lot of it, but I don't go off on tangents, so I have to control myself with this, and I want to make sure you guys get a lot of this back. So she preaches lighting and different things like that, alarm systems, for those of you that are comfortable with it. I do like the cameras because this is something that's quicker. If it goes to your smartphone, and then when you say, right now there's someone in my home, it's something that all cops will, it's human nature, and I'm not gonna say that we're lazy or anything like that, but when I hear on the radio on the tip, wait, someone's in someone's house right now, and even if I'm going to do something else, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna stop this call, because this one's just, I'm gonna take a report for this, and someone's in this person's house right now and they're saying they don't belong there. You're gonna get cops that are just doing something else to go with that other cop that's assigned that call. And everyone wants to catch a burglar. I mean, you guys have watched cops for years, right? And we want to catch somebody, we want to run, we want flip pursuits, we want to get this person, we want to get the bad guy. So you're going to get a better response from those cameras when you actually know that someone's in your home. A lot of things are speed in communities and speed. I can tell you this before I don't know where some of you guys are from, if you're not from this, but we always get complaints on 3 Oaks, Ben Hill, Griffith Road, Tree Line. So I can tell you every day, I get the watch commander reports, and they tell me what happened in the night before, what everyone's been up to. So with that, I always see they're always doing traffic operations there. They're always doing some radar on these different roads. So if you see something like that, just call into 477-1000. It's a 239 number, and just say, hey, I want to talk to, somebody in charge or like a traffic unit, and then we can try and get specialized times. You're gonna want to know, like, every night at 1 in the morning, there's motorcycles. It's always the motorcycles. They have these loud mufflers. They're speeding and doing raceway. Just let us know the exact times, that if it's a pattern, because we can't catch everybody, but we really do try. I know you guys are running late. I don't want to get deep into it. I want to ask if anybody has any questions for me right now. I want to kind of speed it up for you guys. So if any questions, I want to get to everybody.
You mentioned the phone number just a few seconds.
Oh yeah, sure, I'll tell you. It's 239-477-1000.
Thank you.
No problem. Yes, sir.
Can you talk a little bit about license plate readers? I understand you're installing those in some of the communities.
Okay, so what I was just saying before was, they're not our license plate reader cameras. We have 2 different companies right now that are willing to work with us. They have our software.
Okay.
We don't get anything from them. Only thing we get is the positivity of the camera does work. We can go into them if we wanted to, if your community signs something that says, yes, we give the sheriff's office.
So the community gets with you and says, this is what the 2 that we know work with our system. Community does a budget, say, yes, we want it, they put it in, and then they let you have access to it.
And also with those camera companies, what they're also doing is, a lot of other camera companies do the same thing. You're signing on to get a tag reader, plate reader camera. It's gonna take a picture of the back of the vehicle. It's gonna be a clear picture day or night. You're getting that. And that's your separate contract with that company. And so, you'll pay a fee, and I understand some of them, they come out, if it's broken, they fix it for free and things like that. With us, it's interactive with us. And also, what'll happen is this, so a lot of people, like, let's say they're from Lehigh, let's just say, I'm not saying they are, they're from Lehigh, they steal a plate off of another car, or they steal a car. And if we're fortunate, that owner has, put a report in that vehicle is stolen, the tag is stolen. Either way. So now they come down, they hit your community, they go in the front, it hits the tag reader. That immediately triggers, because that's a hot item. So that would hit the sheriff's office right away. Oh, that just went in there. Let's send a team of guys in there to go try and find that car. Because they'll steal cars and tags to go into your community and steal other things in your community, or steal another car in your community. So they like to steal a car to steal more. And what we try and do is avoid that. So it's something like that, that really, if somebody comes in and let's say your license has been suspended because you didn't pay your insurance, that's a different thing. We kind of have a different thing with that. And that very well may hit, but that's not a hot item. We're not looking for the average person with a suspended license. We're looking for a stolen vehicle, stolen tag, you know, different things. A hot, like, I always say this, and this is kind of a stretch, but that Brian killed the kid that killed his girlfriend. If he had a vehicle, this is the easy way to explain it. If he had a vehicle and he did go into a community because he knew somebody in there, it would hit, and we'd be like, oh my God, that kid's in there right now, his vehicle's in there. That's what we think he's driving, so everyone would jump on that to try and grab that kid. So it's one of those things.
Okay, we're gonna have to cut back again, sorry again, it's all time.
All right, I get the hook.
Getting hooked.
Hey, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lieutenant. Some of you know I have an affinity to police. Some of you don't know that. Well, ask the ones who do. Okay, George Zalucki is the chairperson-elect of Estero Park Foundation, and George is gonna come up and say a few words.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
Good morning, everyone.
Thank you for allowing me to share some information about the Estero Forever Foundation this morning. My name is George Zalucki, and I am the chair-elect of the foundation. So it's my pleasure to be here this morning to share that information. Quick show of hands, who knows or is aware of the foundation, Estero Forever Foundation? Wow. All right, awesome, great. Well, my expectation is for those of you that aren't aware, by the end of this presentation, you will be well informed. So let's talk about the genesis of the foundation. How did it all start? Does everybody in here know who Jim Bosch is?
Yes.
Of course you do. So Jim had an idea back in 2019 to start a community foundation with a purpose of raising private funds and work with public tax dollars for projects in Estero that impact the community. Does that make sense? So that was started in 2019. Who are we? What do we do? And what have we done, right? Those are common questions. So we are a nonprofit 501(c), and what we do is we mobilize resources such as financial assets, people, ideas, and we have a purpose of continually making Estero the best place to live, work, play, worship, and visit in Southwest Florida. You hear that a lot today with some of the different organizations in the community. It's a big driver. So our nonprofit administrator is the Southwest Florida Community Foundation, otherwise known today as the Collaboratory. I believe the ECCL is also with that administrator, at least for now.
No, as of yesterday or the day before, we had it.
Yeah, okay. So I will tell you, over the last couple of years, they've done a great job for us, and they even invest the funds that we've been able to allocate toward the foundation. So that's who we're with. They take care of that. Here's the board of directors, Nolan Rollins. I'm sure most of you know him. He's moving to Tennessee at the beginning of the month. There's me and Joni Pavich, and Luis, Lou's wife, is on the board, and also John Quinn, our latest director. Thank you, John, for joining the team. And of course, Jim Bosch, I mentioned him, he's the founding member. So here's the vision. So we envision the village of Estero having interconnected parks and trails and green spaces and recreational facilities that foster a sense of belonging, place, and purpose. And I think most of us would agree that Estero has somewhat of an identity complex. We are often viewed as the little brother of Fort Myers or Naples or Bonita. And I know there's organizations working very hard to change that perception. We want our own identity, and we're working very hard to achieve that. So the mission and purpose. The mission is to mobilize resources for the fulfillment of our vision by encouraging and facilitating generosity. And our purpose is to support the actions to preserve our historic heritage, that's a big one, protect the environment, and to assist with projects that add value to our community. So core values. We want to leave a better community for those who follow us, right? So legacy, excellence. We believe we have a great community. We want to make it better. Generosity, we believe in giving back, of course, and collaboration is a big one. You hear that a lot today with the NPOs and the organizations. We believe all of us have to work together for the benefit of the community. It's very important. So here's the 30,000-foot basic strategy. 4 points. First, we operate a community foundation guided by our mission that I went over earlier. We mobilize resources that I talked about. We identify priority projects that we're always constantly engaged in, and then what we do is distribute those resources to fund those projects. That's pretty much the loop. How do we do it? Well, again, there's that word collaborate, very important. With the Village of Estero Council and staff, community leaders, local NPOs such as the ECCL, and the other organizations on the bottom that you can see there, stakeholders, other stakeholders, and residents. And we want to do is we want to align our goals to fulfill our mission of funding some of these projects for the betterment of Estero. So some of those priority projects, by the way, they were given to us by our donors. This is direct feedback from our donors, from the residents. Performing Arts and Cultural Center, that's high priority. Environmental preservation, green spaces, parks, walking trails, and bike paths. Recreational facilities and sporting fields. Historical heritage, and of course, we need the land to facilitate some of those projects. I've got a short video here, relatively short. You're gonna see some familiar faces. The names are the same, their positions may have changed, but this is a promotional video that we put out just before our inaugural celebration back in 2020, and it's a good video that kind of sums up what we're doing. So thank you for watching the video. So what have we done to date? Well, we've raised over $110,000 in cash in pledges since we formed the foundation. We provided a $5,000 grant to the Estero Historical Society to help renovate or maintain the 2 beautiful buildings we have right here on this property. And we've engaged and continue to engage the Village of Estero and other community organizations to identify the projects that we want to tackle. So we're constantly in that cycle. How can you help? You can help by, of course, continuing to be a champion for the village. Consider a donation or a legacy pledge through estate planning. Attend events, and we've got a great event that I'm going to talk about in a second coming up. Register to receive our newsletter on our website, and we encourage you to give us feedback through our website as well. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you want. And support our mission of forever building a stronger community. So the Gala Eckerendeza is March 31st. It's going to be a great event sponsored by the Estero Forever Foundation. Obviously, it's going to be held at Grandeza. Tickets are only $85. What's great about this is not a fundraising event. This is an event to raise awareness about what's happening in the village. So we have 9 guest speakers, one of which is the president of the ECCL, Jim Gilmartin.
2 minutes.
Two to 3 minutes. That's great. But it's going to be, did anybody go to the 7th anniversary this past Saturday?
Yeah.
Great. So Billy Dean and Dawn, they're going to be there all night long. Dinner, dancing, cocktail hour. It's going to be a great time. So we encourage you to register for that. You can do so by going to esteroforeverfoundation.org. You can email me directly at info@esteroforeverfoundation.org, and you can find us on all of the social platforms as well.
That's it, thanks.
Thank
Appreciate
you,
it.
everybody.
Thank you. All right, the next speaker is Ben Hayden, Community and Business Relations for Lee Health. Ben's gonna talk about health fair.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'll keep this brief. This is just a reminder to everybody in the community. We had a health and wellness fair planned for January to be held here as a collaboration between Lee Health and Lee Parks and Rec. It was unfortunately postponed due to COVID, but it is rescheduled for Saturday, March 26th from 9 to noon. It will be held here. There are flyers on the back over there for anybody to grab. The phone number, if anybody needs further information, 239-533-1470. We can also email this to anybody if you're wanting to get it out to your community letter or something like that. Happy to do that as well. And with that, I can take any questions from there. I'll sit in the back.
He'll
Thank
be
you.
here in the back. Thanks.
Short sweet.
Okay, we really try to keep these meetings to about an hour, so as you know, I'm just moving it along. And I'm gonna briefly go through a couple of points here, and then we'll end the meeting. As Ray mentioned, the Estero 7th anniversary event was really cool, really, really nice. It was a good group. I wish there was more, but it was a good event. The update on the Greater Estero Virtual Information Center is basically, we are in the process of entering into a memorandum of understanding with the village to see if we can work out a couple of small points, not really great points. Barry Friedman, who's sitting in the back, can give you a lot of insights into it if you're interested more in it. But we're getting very close to cutting a deal with the village to help support the so-called GVIC. Excuse me. And there are a variety of influential people in the community, business people who have coughed up close to about $80,000 for us to do this. So it's really moving ahead. I think we should always look forward to it. The 501c3 that we are right now, excuse me, was really given to us a while ago, but we've just released the information a few weeks ago or a week or so ago. We're in the process of establishing policy and activity, how we're going to run this from the ECCL, so stay tuned. We will renew the Adopt a Highway program. That's been very successful with Julie Yellig, and there's a potential of expanding it in Estero. We also met with Eckerendeza Club leadership to discuss the potential Calusa Waterkeeper demonstration projects for residential communities. I mentioned that last week, or the last month I should say, and several communities have reached out and will be talking to the Calusa Waterkeepers to see what they can do about reducing the nutrients and phosphate that is generated by many of our communities that flow right into the Estero Bay. We got problems in the Estero Bay. If you don't know that, look into it. It's bad news. So we have to do something about it. I am very happy to talk about this March Spotlight magazine article on the ECCL. It was really a great piece. I don't know who wrote that. I wrote it with Jeff. It was really very good. It contributed to a lot of people signing up to the ECCL on the website, so it was a nice piece. I appreciate Jeff doing what he did. We are recruiting for a couple of people. Specifically, I want to talk about Advocacy Council advisors. These are a couple of positions we're looking for. As you know, Mark is going to step down from the Chief Operating Officer position, excuse me, and he does so much that we need two. We need two people sort of to ease the burden, right? 3 people, he said. We need 2 people to ease the burden. But if you're interested, you know somebody you might be interested, it's a mentor position. It's not anybody doing a lot of operation and management. It's basically being there for the council chairs, just as somebody to talk to, get involved with, get insights, and have a link between the council and the executive management team. I don't have the time to get out and do that. I wish I could, but I can't do that. Mark did that terrifically over the years working with me. We need to break it out into 2 other positions. It's not going to be that difficult. The hours aren't going to be that great. They'll be up on the website probably the next day or so. So look at that if you're interested. The final thing is, finally, you know that Howard Levitan, co-chair of the Planning, Zoning, and Design Board of the Village of Estero, announced he's stepping down. Some of you may know Howard. He's on his way back to Maine, where he's originally from. Howard was a very active ECCL board member during many years, and he left only to serve on the village council. Howard was very, very active, involved in even forming the village. So it was a group of people that spent some time doing that. He did a great job. He contributed significantly from our perspective over the last 12 years. First, he served as a volunteer on the Estero Design Board, Review Board, before the Village Incorporation. He then served 2 terms as a council member, and lastly, as co-chair of the Planning, Zoning, and Review Board. We offer thanks to him and contributions, and wish him as well as his wife Rebecca great as a return to Maine. And on that note, we started a little late, so I want to leave it at that. We'll be here. Most of us, if you have any questions of me directly, talk to me. I'll be happy to answer your questions. Thanks for coming. Our next meeting is April 8th at 10 a.m. here. Thank you very much.